In this next story, we go from building coalitions to a man living isolated without a country. 7 days a week, across the border in Nogales, Sonora, he makes the short walk from his house to where he works. He was born, but not raised, a Mexican.
My name is Joel Diaz Rincon. I'm a U.S. military veteran from the Marine Corps. I served in the Marine Corps from June 4th, 1991 to October 12th, 1994.
That's right, Joel Rincon was a U.S. Marine. But if you talk to any Marine, you know that once a Marine, always a Marine. Rincon was brought to the U.S. as a small child and grew up in California. He is one of an estimated up to 3,000 U.S. vets who entered the U.S. military as non-U.S. citizens, honorably discharged, granted alien residency, but then deported when they broke the law after having served.
Served our country, many in combat, and now, because of the crime they committed when they were released from prison after paying their debt to society, they were picked up by ICE or Border Patrol and immediately deported.
Arizona Congressman Raul Grijalva and Senator Tammy Duckworth from Illinois have introduced similar bills in the House and the Senate to give these deported U.S. veterans a chance to redeem themselves and come home.
And they found reality hit them as soon as they were done with whatever penalty they had been given because of the crime or infraction that they committed, that they suddenly had no rights of a citizen to go back to their community. And that's when the enforcement side of the immigration law took over, and they were immediately deported.
Now, Rincon admits he was on probation for a domestic violence charge when he was caught driving a stolen vehicle. He pleaded guilty and served 1 year in jail. What happened next, he says, was shocking. His family was there to pick him up, but instead...
When I was done with my prison sentence, I thought I was going to be released. However, to my surprise, there was an immigration officer waiting for me. They said I had a removal order. I didn't understand why, because I thought I was a citizen the whole time. When I joined the military, they told me I would automatically be a citizen. And they didn't give me the option to post bail and maybe hire myself an attorney to fight my deportation order. They said that was not an option, that I was considered a dangerous felon, even though I was felony 6, which is the lowest in the state of Arizona, next to a misdemeanor.
We know they did something wrong, they paid for it, and now they're paying again. Many of them removed from their communities that they knew no other community except the one that they lived in here in the United States.
When I was deported, the judge ordered the deportation, executed the order, and that same night, at 10 o'clock at night, we were rolled up our stuff. They told us to come pick up our belongings, our legal papers. We were loaded up into a van and taken to another detention center, picked up a couple more deportees. When I got to Nogales, it was cold, it was freezing in January of 2001. I only had a t-shirt on, and they told us, here's your paperwork, good luck. We didn't have a lunch, we didn't have nothing. So it was up to us to survive, and it was a strange country. I haven't been here since I was a kid.
The numbers vary from 1,700 to 3,100. They're all over the country, on every border community, from Tijuana to El Paso to Matamoros to Calexico and Nogales, San Luis. They're there. In the Philippines, in South Korea, and the Caribbean.
These vets have been left to fend for themselves, says Grijalva. Most are deported back to Mexico, and like Joel Rincon, were left numb from it all.
I was lost, and I was waiting for the daylight to buy a phone card because I didn't have a phone to call my family or collect call. So I was pretty desperate, very desperate, almost to the point where I was crying.
But being a Marine, says Rincon, he came up with a plan: get back home to Arizona at all costs. He called his sister.
She came the very next morning, brought me some warm clothes, brought me some money, and I told her I was going to attempt to cross because there's no way I was going to stay here. I bought me some decent clothes, and I told her to stand by and wait for me to see if I made it across the border, and I did. Luckily for me, the officer was just too nice or believed me and let me go through with no problems.
Rincon has been deported 3 other times. In 2005, he was working as a manager at a Denny's restaurant when an immigration officer mistook him for someone else. He was let go, but then rearrested when the officer ran his name, and it came back as in the country illegally. He was deported yet again.
The circumstances were the same. Goodbye, good luck to you. Please don't come back.
Rincon says, remember, he is a U.S. Marine, and he was not about to leave his country and his family behind. So he had to devise another plan.
Looking for a way to come back to the U.S. because I just couldn't see myself without my family and without my country.
And you talk to them, they're still extremely patriotic. They would do it again. They would volunteer again and do it again. And they're out, and they're living in a country, primarily Mexico, of which they have no roots in. They've been displaced from this country.
The congressional bill introduced by Congressman Grijalva, if passed, will open the door, he says, to a second chance to be an American.
And these are men and women that served our country in uniform, veterans, and all we're asking is that the bill asks for a process so that the Defense Department can, on a case-by-case basis, begin to reintegrate and bring these individuals back.
¿Y no le pediste de las Pepsi, de las grandes? When I wake up in the mornings, I always feel myself like I'm going to wake up in the U.S. And walking around here, it's the only thing that brings me back to reality because I am in Mexico.
Rincon was able to get family members from the U.S. to purchase a franchise to a small corner store that he now manages, giving him now a way to make a living. He was also wounded by friendly fire in a training mission while in the Marines. His leg still requires medical attention.
But it's hard to make a living, man, because if you don't earn a decent salary, the salary here, the average salary a week here is about $40. And so to get your medical attention, which my leg requires medicine, pain medicine during winter, I just can't do it. Without my family, I wouldn't be able to do it, man.
We continue the education campaign with members of Congress, with the administration, in fact, tell them this is an anomaly that has occurred in our immigration enforcement and needs to be resolved. And I think when people sit and listen, regardless of their political persuasion, and they see it's about veterans, then they have a whole different attitude. We've been able to convert some people that at first were totally against it. Once they understood the population we were dealing with, they changed their mind. This bill is more about veterans than it is about immigration, period.
I still feel like an American. I still feel I've never felt Mexican in my life.